Wings is a Cinemaware masterpiece. It's Amigos, episode 28 Remastered, from January 28th, 2016.
So Wings is, it is a part of a proud tradition of World War I flight simulators that started, I guess, with Blue Max.
There is some parts of this are very Blue Maxian.
It was released in 1990, of course, developed and published by Cinemaware, and it is probably one of the more, you think about if you were going to describe this game, you'd call it, an arcade-style shooter, but it's so much more than that because of the trappings, the Cinemaware trappings, and we'll go into that a little bit later on when we dig deep into Wings. But don't be fooled by the descriptor if you're just reading Lemon Amiga or something like that. This is a deep game. What do you have on the? Do you have anything about the development team on this one?
Sure, it's a lot of the same Cinemaware guys we know and love. To start off, Cinemaware, company you all know and love. We've talked about a lot of their games. They did It Came from the Desert. They did Defender of the Crown. They did.
Three
Stooges. They did TV sports, basketball, baseball, football, boxing. They did a lot of games that are well known, including some we went over on the show. Sinbad, it's another one. So a lot of the same fellas that work on a lot of these worked on this. It was designed by John Cutter. Of course, he's done a lot of them. His note, pretty much a lot of his stuff was almost all of his stuff was was Cinemaware stuff. He did boxing, he did Defender of the Crown, he did basketball, King of Chicago, Lords of the Rising Sun, Rocket Ranger, another great one. Sinbad, pretty much almost all their titles Cutter worked on. They also had Jerry Albright. Again, he worked on a lot of the sports titles for Cinemaware. A fellow called Tim Hayes. This was his only game. And another fella called Dan Pinel. Again, he worked on this and TV sports basketball, so he had a good run if you are going to do two for design. This was created by, they've listed the Jacobs as the creators, which is the Jacobs are the big wigs at Cinemaware.
Blake and Jake.
Yeah, yeah. It's Robert and Phyllis.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Cinemaware, they were Cinemaware. They started somewhere. You can pretty much list everything they've been involved in some capacity. I saw a Matt chat. If you're familiar with this fella, Matt is a guy that used to work for what's the name of that? One of the retro sites. The name's failing me right off the top of my head, but he does video chats with these old producers and designers and game guys. He did John Cutter in one of these, and I flipped through it and watched it. I recommend this guy, by the way. His Matt chats are always good. He's a good interviewer. But Cutter said that when Jacob came in, he said, listen, he goes, I've seen a lot of stuff being done with 3D, and I think this would be a good platform to do a World War I game. So make that happen. And John Cutter said he was not happy about this revelation. But he had his walking orders. So there was no internet. He went to the library and pulled up a book and started looking through the pages and trying to get in the whole World War I thing. And by the time he was finished, he was reading about Eddie Rickenbacker and Ball and Richthofen and all the stuff that happened. When he was excited as hell to get the game out, he turned the corner, and they really went into this project. In their mind, to do the best job they could to portray what it was like to be a pilot in World War I. So that's how they put the game together. They didn't just want to have blowing stuff up Rambo style. They wanted something with heart that could tell a story and give someone the feeling that they were involved in an actual long-standing battle.
Right.
And that's pretty much what they did. I think they did a good job with it. Anyway, to go down the line, this was produced by David Reardon, another Cinemaware guy. He did baseball. He did the sequel to It Came from the Desert. It's funny, a lot of guys that worked on this, for whatever reason, worked on It Came from the Deserts. So, which we haven't covered those yet. They were unique, that's for sure. Another producer was Jerry Albright. Again, he did a lot of the sports titles and Wings. So that's the connection. It came from the desert and the sports titles. The coder was Tim Hayes. He worked on, guess what, the sports titles, and it came from the desert, Rocket Ranger. Graphics, Jeffrey Hilbers. It came from the desert, it's King of Chicago. The musician, which the music in this game is quite good.
Yeah.
In fact, it's quite popular.
It's very,
I've seen it covered by a lot. I couldn't believe I looked on YouTube and everyone was doing this music.
It's very evocative of the time.
It absolutely is. The musician was a gentleman named Gregory Haggard. He did Wings, and It Came from the Deserts. Bam.
He did the Dukes of Hazzard theme too, right?
That's Merle Haggard.
Oh, okay.
You lost your mind, Bo. And the other gentleman that worked the music, Ken Melville. This is the only game he worked on. I read somewhere this. In fact, I read this on Cinemaware's page, and I didn't have this guy listed, but I thought it was an interesting little tidbit. Excuse me. It said one of the writers in this was a guy named Ken Goldstein. Okay. Now, I didn't see his name pop up anywhere. This is the only place I saw was on Cinemaware's website, so I'm going to take it for what it was. But according to what they had here, he joined this outfit to write on Wings, fresh off his success as being writing supervisor on NBC's Hill Street Blues.
Wow. And Hill Street Blues is one of the best written shows of all time. I love Hill Street Blues.
I haven't watched that much of it, but I've seen a few. I don't know if this is something that anyone in any other countries are going to know. Hill Street Blues was a cop show.
And the things that they did with Hill Street Blues, we can go on a tangent. Back in the 80s, this was early 80s, you couldn't have, it wasn't like The Wire. You couldn't have cursing. You couldn't have a lot of things that people have now. And to be able to write a show and make it seem real with the constraints that they had to work with at that time, I mean, that really shows a lot about the pedigree of this game that he worked on that.
Well, again, assuming he was involved in the writing at a high degree, let's put it this way: whoever wrote this, they were very poignant. They were very historically accurate. I've also read that if you read the manual for this game, the first paragraph basically says this is not a game. This is a simulator, and this is as historically accurate as possible. In fact, I'll flip over here to the manual because I actually printed it out. And I thought this was actually this sort of the way this was written is well done. I'm just going to read a little bit of the introduction. It says Wings is an interactive movie. Wings is not an interactive movie, nor could it be called a military flight simulator. Yet it combines the elements of both to create an interactive experience. Now, this is the part that I think is really interesting. The game is historically accurate whenever possible. The Das Rittmeister character that you meet at the end of 1916 is fictionalized, as well as the 56th Aero Squadron itself, which represents a typical American, English, or French fighter unit. The real 56th Squadron was an elite unit made up of top pilots of England. They traded flight tactics and tested new SE-5s before returning to their units to share the newly acquired knowledge. So, aside from that, they pretty much stay right in the timeline of the First World War. I checked around just to see, and yeah, I mean they did a good job. The dates and stuff, they all fleshed out the ones I checked, and I think that helps add to the ambiance of the game. You get a feel of what was happening in the war at that time. I guess we should probably explain the game. You want to explain exactly what the game is a little bit before we get into it?
Well, in the game, you're greeted at the beginning. You can enter your name, and the first thing you have to do is earn your wings. And so this is kind of like pilot school. You are tasked to complete one or two of the three different missions that are available, and the mission types are it's like a first-person perspective. You're flying the plane. It's actually an over-the-shoulder first-person perspective, and you've got to knock down a weather balloon in the training mode. The second one is you have a bombing assignment where you have to bomb certain targets on a map as you're flying over it in a 1942 or 1943 kind of arcade perspective where you're looking at the top down. The third mission type is a isometric kind of pseudo 3D like Xevious or Blue Max shooter You are not tasked to earn your wings by doing this, because in the actual thing, I mean, you're literally killing people, blowing up, moving targets, and you're never asked to earn your wings in that particular setting. But the first two you are. So say that you pass the first two missions. They're very easy training missions. You immediately jump right into the war.
March 6, 1916. That's the day you start.
And as far as I know, what they have is they have 5 or 6 different kind of starting scenarios, because whenever I'd restart, I wouldn't get things in the same order that as I always did. And so you get a scenario that's written down, you have music playing behind you, and then you're off to your mission. And the scenarios aren't just destroy enemy fighters. These are little kind of novellas that tell you what's going on. You're allowed to see the personal side of both your pilot and your commanding officer, as well as other people in your squadron.
Yeah, you're when you join the squadron, you become the squadron's basically their bibliographer. You're the guy writing every month you keep a log. Every mission, basically, you'll have a log entry, and you're reading the entry. For the first one, I remember it vividly because the pilot talks about moving into his new headquarters, and then he talks about he wishes how he could have slept well the night before because he was so scared he couldn't sleep, and now he's tired and he's going to go out in his first sortie. And
there's another one where he's talking about he didn't want to go up on, he hasn't eaten much breakfast, he had some bad coffee, but he doesn't want to go up there with a full stomach. And so it really kind of it makes the game personal in a way that most other games aren't.
Yeah, and something I like is occasionally it's not all gloom. Sometimes your guy will go and leave. Sometimes there'll be pictures. There's one where they put a snowman up and they put a German helmet on it and they throw snowballs at it. And
or no, they shoot it with a gun.
That's right.
They're talking about target practice.
Then there's lots of ones where they make fun of their commander, or you say something about the commander, and then sometimes some of the people in the stories get killed.
Yeah.
Something else I liked about it is, there's a lot of like the Hun this, we're going to get the Hun, but a lot of it is they respect the enemy to in some cases.
There's one scenario where they find a German plane patrolling alone, and they were going to just let it go because it didn't but then it engaged them in battle. And of course, they had to dispatch it.
Something else I like is once you read your diary page or your log, there'll be a cut scene of the plane taking off. And then the game will load. And then what happens is like a movie style card will appear on the screen, and it'll have more information about the current mission. But it's presented in like a way like you would see in an old silent film, sort of like Which Wings was a movie from that era. But it's a cinema card. It's written out there, and then you'll hit your button, and then mission will start. But you get a little more flavor there. Mm-hmm. The diary's more about what's building up to the mission. And then the card is like what's happening immediately. What am I doing? How's my guy feeling? What is the situation? Sometimes it's important. It'll say, "Hey, we see, 4 enemy planes. We didn't expect that many. We've only got 2 guys." Or, there's a guy on my, coming up on my tail. Anything. Their scenarios can change, and that really adds the spiciness of it as well.
Right. The things that I thought the first person, the over the shoulder first person dogfighting stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing that that's a game from 1990.
I know. It's incredible.
It's runs
truly incredible.
Super smooth. The action is fast. You get a sense of the speed of the planes. The enemy planes circle and they do things. The AI is very good. Yeah. Your guys' planes do things that are good too. And it's just amazing. You'll be watching from afar across the field, and you'll watch your buddy's plane get shot down, or you'll watch your buddy shoot down a German plane, and it'll circle. It'll slowly crash. And the graphics are just outstanding on that.
It is truly amazing. Now, this is going to run better or worse depending on what you've got. It runs smooth as silk in the 1200 emulator. Of course, it's going to run perfectly well. Some people thought it was a little jerkier on the some of the slower machines, but it was definitely playable. I mean, I played this thing on a Plain Jane 1000. It's slow, which I had a little bit of memory. That's it. I thought it played fine, but I've heard people complain about it. The dogfighting stuff, it is outstanding. What I liked about it was, I'm not a flight simulator guy. Some people are. This was perfect for a guy like me. There was no keyboard commands unless you want to look around, and you use the joystick to just run around. And the button shoots, and you could just follow your guy's head, and he would turn left or right depending on where an enemy fighter was.
Right.
And sometimes
it's an ingenious way
it is
to show that without any kind of a radar.
Yes, yes. Because this screen is free of any sort of gauges.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fuel gauge. There's no ammo gauge. You're just a guy. I love the simplicity because these guys were in glorified kites. If you think about it, the plane had only existed for about, 15, 20 years?
Maybe not even that
Yeah,
long.
And these guys were up here fighting in these things. I mean, it was all brand new. It was crazy time. And so they wouldn't have had a bunch of fancy gauges and stuff. These guys were just up there, had their wits,
Yeah.
But when your guy will turn his head, his scarf's flapping, and when you're getting shot, bullets will appear, on the underside of your wings, and you can see them, on the top wing. So hey, I'm damaged.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally your guns will lock up.
Right.
You'll
have to fly around just defenseless until you're free again.
It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
You can land.
Really?
You can. I don't know if you ever tried that.
No,
you can
I
land
never tried.
on the ground, and basically you're giving up the scenario. Now you have to land. You can't, because you could also crash.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, if you get killed, in fact, every time, if you get shot, and your poor guy's head limps down, you just and you have to sit there. There's nothing you can do, and you spiral down and hit the ground and explode. It's sad. And there's a scene where that shows you burying your guy. But you can land if you have to, or if you want to. It's not something I was happy about, but you could do it. But I mean, they didn't like it. And I think three or four missions where you screwed up in a row, and that counted as screwing up. Also, missing your targets in the bombing run was a screw up. Shooting ambulances and hospital tents. 3 or 4 of those, and they kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
You get discharged, and you have to start again.
Now, let me ask you this. I played this. My best game, I probably completed 5 or 6 missions.
Mm-hmm.
I never once had a bombing mission.
Mm-hmm.
I only had the Zevia style.
Strafing.
Right, or the first person. So how many missions do you have to play, do you think, before you get one of those, or is it totally random?
I don't think any of the game. I didn't think any of the game was random. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was all in a precise order. I think because when you die, you pick up right at the next mission.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Bombing, that's the least. That's the one that occurs the least.
Mm-hmm.
Bombing, again, I like all the mini games. Bombing is probably the most infuriating because I always had trouble getting the bomb to go out exactly right when I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
But bombing is pretty simple. You've got to avoid anti-aircraft and just try to drop your bombs. And occasionally you'll see a plane come out. The strafing, it's sort of sad. Because it's one thing when you're shooting a guy in a plane, but I mean you're gunning down troops.
Right, these guys don't
jeeps,
stand a chance,
and you're just gunning down hundreds of people,
and everybody's running from you too. That all the vehicles are going in the opposite
back.
direction.
They can shoot you, and eventually you could lose in that one as well. Those two are both good. Like I said, for me, I like the dogfighting the best, and sometimes they vary it. Sometimes it's dogfights. Sometimes it's balloon busting. Sometimes you're protecting a balloon. Sometimes you're protecting a bomber. Sometimes you protect stuff. They vary it up nicely. This is one of those games you probably think to yourself, "Oh, after 2 or 3 of them to get bored." I've played this game all the way through several times, all the way to the end. I've got a guy with like 178 kills.
Wow.
Dick Rude was my guy. I'm not gonna lie. There were a few times I'd hit Control Delete real quick when the deal went south on me, but or Control Delete. There I go again. Control Amiga. But it's a great game, and the reason it doesn't get old is because it varies in the gameplay, plus the diary, the movie cards. It's a beautiful package. It's 2 discs, so there's not a ton of swapping. It was hard drive installable right out of the gate back in the day, so you could install this one if you wanted to. And there's no score, and really even when you win, quote unquote, when the war ends. And even the last mission is sort of poignant because you're on your last sortie, you see another guy. There's no reason for you guys to fight, but it just seems like the thing to do. And you go down. I mean, he doesn't revel in it. It's funny when sometimes he'll be like, "Yeah, I took down 4 Hun." But a lot of times he's solemn about it. And often, or if all your buddies get killed, a lone warrior returns home. It's a sad thing, and then they'll show in between missions. They show like a billboard or it's a pin board, a stick board, and they'll have the guys crossed out and all these aces that are up there are being killed.
And I think it's really funny because in the game there are one of 2 statuses that you can have: okay or dead. And so that's all the ones that I saw. So you come back from your mission, and it might say your status is okay, and then your buddy, his status is dead.
I used to watch a show called Blackadder. I love this show, but it had a term I'd never heard until I watched an episode. It was an episode when I don't know if you've ever seen this show.
I've never seen it. I've heard many people talk about it.
It was historically based. It's comedy, but there was one season, Blackadder the Fourth, where it took place during World War I, and Blackadder decided to join the Flying Corps, and they called them the 20 Minuters, and it's the first time I'd ever heard that, and that's because, and this is a real term, the average lifespan of a new pilot was 20 minutes.
Wow.
So you had to have a lot of guts to even get anywhere near one of these airplanes, much less go into combat with them. And that's another thing about the game. It doesn't pull any punches. You're done. When you die, like I said, you just basically spiral in and then you die.
You have to register a new character, earn your wings all over again. Now, I didn't realize that they jumped you right back into whatever mission you were at.
And you can't even use the same name again.
No. It will tell you cannot use this name.
so it's a real bummer. But it's just a great game. A few things about it. Excuse me. I didn't know this, and I've played this game a million times. There's cheats for this game.
Really?
Yeah. If you hold down Control, left Shift, and left Alt, and use the right mouse button, and you use the left mouse button to click on letters in Wings, the logo, you can toggle the music on and off. You can have auto fire with the caps lock. Probably would have been handy. One where you can skip flight school, and then I'm not sure. Oh, there's one that lets you save the game without exiting.
Oh.
And then another thing I saw cheat-wise, when you're in the flight school menu, there's a plane on top of the screen. If you click on the bullseye in that plane, the screen will flash, and it'll ask you if you want to quit or something like that. And you just hit no. And then if you type in the new pilot, Orca the Killer Tomato, it'll recognize you. It says your plane is fueled and ready to go. And then you get a super pilot, basically.
Oh, wow.
Now, I went out and got the super pilot killed in my first mission. But and there's another thing you can type in called, you type in who is the Riddler. And it gives you some kind of hidden menu. I didn't get to try that one.
I love stuff like that, little Easter eggs.
I agree. I had a look around on eBay, as I do. This game is surprisingly uncommon, apparently. There was 2 people selling one right now in the U.S. Asking price $125. They might get it. I looked, and some had sold up in that area. Now, there are some overseas that I saw going for $65, $40 to $50, in that area. But there weren't a lot. I saw a guy, and I looked over the last couple months. There haven't been very many of these sold. So, if you've got hold of this, you're sitting pretty. It's something you're not gonna, which I thought they'd be tons around.
Right.
You got anything else on this one?
Well, the game reviewed very well. In 1993, Amiga World, and of course in 93 we're almost getting towards the end of the Amiga's life. They rank Wings 3rd on their list of all-time Amiga games.
Yes.
The game, out of all the reviews that I saw, it never scored below an 80 or so. And the game was ported to the Game Boy Advance. It was ported in where is that? 2002, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And basically there were a couple small changes, but it's